Right, okay, well thank you very much for coming along to our listening tour presentation this year. The idea of which is that we have some information to share with you. You tell us or question us on any particular points about the operations and functions of council. If you have particular or specific matters that can be regarded as customer requests or customer complaints about, one-off type issues, we have Mary along here tonight. Mary is from our customer service section in council, and if you raise a point that can be converted into a customer request, we'll direct you to Mary so that you can put your information directly, but Mary will convert it directly into a customer.
Call with a reference number tomorrow.
Yes, okay, and you get a reference number tomorrow. But I guess
sorry, with the housekeeping, sorry. Last time when people were going across and then no one could hear the workers' complaints about, if people go to Mary and give that their request.
if they could whisper.
Yeah,
I can go out there.
well, just see how it goes. But
Yeah, we'll see how it goes,
it's a bit of an issue last time.
Yeah, I can go to this. I'll
See
see
how
out
it
there.
goes.
Yep, rightio. Now, the duration of the meeting is around about 2 hours. Start by 6, finish by 8. We've had 2 other listening tour meetings so far, and we've managed to wrap them up in the 2 hours' time. In relation to recording or videoing, council, we're recording tonight. Anybody else recording? Mr. Newson? We are recording for the purpose of just keeping an accurate record of the proceedings for tonight. Mr. Newson, why might you be recording?
A bit of press, and so it goes on YouTube so everybody can see what happens for those that can't get here.
Okay, rightio. So I'll ask you, ladies and gentlemen, do you have any particular objections to being recorded? No? Right. Okay, don't want to impinge or stop you from sharing your thoughts. Tonight I'd like to first of all introduce our top table. I'll start with our Chief Executive Officer, Mark Pitt. Mark Pitt has been with us now. He must be close on 4 months now, and has come from the North Burnett to be the new Chief Executive Officer for the South Burnett. We have Aaron Meehan, who's the General Manager of Infrastructure, and at the top end there we have Lester Shoemaker, who's the General Manager of Finance, and we have Peter O'May, who's the General Manager of Corporate Services. Now, councillors, we have Councillor Kathy Dunn. Councillor is the Deputy Mayor and the Councillor responsible for Division 5. We have Councillor Ros Frolov. Ros Frolov is the portfolio holder for water, wastewater, waste management, sport and recreation. She looks after Division 1. Division 2 is Councillor Gavin Jones, your councillor for this particular area, and his portfolio is roads and drainage. And Denita Potter, Councillor Denita Potter is the portfolio holder for community arts, tourism, health services. Councillor Terry Fleischfresser is the portfolio holder for planning and property, and he represents Division 4. And Councillor Ros Height is the portfolio spokesperson for finance, ICT and human resources. And Councillor Height looks after Division 6, which is the largest area in terms of geography for the whole of the South Burnett region. I'd like to just ask each of the councils to give a brief overview, no more than a few minutes worth of their portfolio areas, and a few comments in relation to budgets, if you can put that in there. Lester Shoemaker will be speaking heavily about the issue of budgeting process, and of course Aaron Meehan and Councillor Jones will be talking about the roads, and Peter O'May will be talking about the issues of governance, etc. So we'll start off with councillors, just a bit of a rundown, councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'm very pleased to be here this evening. It's great to see so many people come out tonight to meet with the council and so that we can listen to your concerns and we can share some ideas and thoughts tonight. I live on the far northwest boundary of the region, and my portfolio is very much the rural portfolio. I have all the like 10-acre baiting programs and pest and weed management and all of the rural services, as well as the parks and gardens and Indigenous affairs. We have $1 million is mostly goes towards the pests, weeds and fire management, 2.8 million in parks maintenance across our region, and we have roughly 8.75 hectares plus town entrances, various traffic islands and median strips that council maintains. We have 51 public conveniences and 13 cemeteries, and my portfolio also has the 2 airports of Wanda and Kingaroy, and also the 2 dam facilities, BP Dam and the Duma Dam. And we have the two rail trails, the BBRT, section from the BBRT and the South Burnett Rail Trail. And also, my portfolio looks after the Coolabunga Sale Yards and the dip facilities. And that's currently under tender, or we're working through a contract with a company to take over those Coolabunga Sale Yards and the dip facilities. And also the Indigenous affairs, and we've worked closely with Sherberg and also run some NAIDOC celebrations and things like that. We ran our second ever NAIDOC celebration in the council forecourt this year. So that's pretty much my portfolio. And I have enjoyed coming here to Maidenwell on various occasions, and one night I came here to a farmer's night, and it's the first time for a long time I've done old time dancing. It was like a step back in yesteryear, so you have a great community, and really pleased to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy, Councillor Duff. And now I'll ask Councillor Ros Froller to say a few words in relation to water, wastewater and waste management.
Thanks, Mayor. As Keith said, yeah, I've got 3 portfolios: water, waste management and sport and rec. Over the next 5 years, we've got in the budget plan of upgrading water and wastewater infrastructure. So during that time, approximately 7.28 million has been allocated towards the operations and maintenance of our new water network, with a further 1.47 towards the main water, renewal and upgrades across our region. We've got 390 kilometres of water mains and 284 kilometres of sewage for us to look after and maintain and replace. And we're also putting 3.6 million towards the wastewater allocations across the region. Also, I have the waste collection, and that our contractor is JJ Richards, and he's funded by the collection of the levy charge, and that which is an extra has gone up an extra $4 per annum. And we've got 4 major landfills to look after and 13 transfer stations. So when you think that's a massive lot of landfill sites and transfer stations that we've got to look after, some have got to be capped off when their use-by date's up. So it does cost a lot of money to keep them. We've allocated $4,452,490 towards those tips, and that. But just out of curiosity, I'd let you know that JJ Richards empties 13,839 wheelie bins a week, so all around our region. And sport and rec, you saw the first draft of the sport and rec that went around. The second one will be coming out shortly for your perusal, and it's only a draft, so it's not set on in concrete yet. So once we let everyone know, please have a look at it and see what you think. Thank you.
Thank you, Ros. We'll move now to, normally I'd have Councillor Jones talking, but the issue of roads is is a big feature of the budget this year. And so he, together with General Manager Aaron Meehan, they'll present a joint presentation to you after each of the councillors have spoken, and the CEO and the other general managers have told you some elements of the budget preparation. So we'll move to Councillor Danita Potter, and Councillor Potter looks after community, arts, tourism and health services. Thank you, Danita.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming tonight. Part of the my community health, arts and tourism portfolio, so we have the libraries under my portfolio. So if you have a look at that readout with that handout you've got, you'll see that we have over 80,000 books within our libraries that are looked after across the regional libraries. But with regards to the libraries, we have the First 5 Ever program. Sorry. Oh, sorry. So we have the First 5 Ever program, and I'm a big advocate of that because the first 5 years of a child's life is their most important, because that's when their brain develops the most. So what the First 5 Ever program entails, it entails rhyme time and story time for the children. So if you're able to get your kids to the libraries to attend those sessions, it's a fantastic session. And in some of the libraries in Nanango and Wanda, they actually coincide with the health nurse. So the child health nurse does the health checks on the babies, and then they stay for rhyme time, story time, which works in beautifully. So the collaboration between Queensland Health and us is actually going really well, because they do that at the Kingaroy Library. I think it's bi-monthly that they do it at the Kingaroy Library, because they already have the clinic up in the dental section at the Kingaroy Hospital, and we actually go up there and do it up there with them. We also do, I also attend the interagency meetings as a council representative, which it's like a big round table with all the local government and non-government agencies from around the area. And basically it's an information sharing session, and so that information, to see our agencies, government and non-government agencies working together, is just amazing, the interactions that they have with each other. It also covers the community grants. Did you guys apply for a community grant this last time? No. But I keep on telling some of you that you should go for the Regional Arts Development Fund grant. There's a few of you out here with your artistic skills, so please keep that in mind. On the health side of things, that covers health compliance with kitchens. It also covers mosquitoes. So coming into summer now, the mosquito breeding season is starting to get into full force. I think we all noticed it here on Saturday night. Also domestic dogs. I do domestic dogs. Kathy's the wild one. I'm domesticated, Kathy's wild. And I also sit on the hospital board in conjunction with the health side of things. So not the hospital board, I do a community consultative committee meeting at the hospital as a representative of council on that. So what I learn then, I then bring back to council to tell them what the hospital is up to. I also, and with the art side of things, the council has the 2 art galleries that we have, the Wanda and the Kingaroy Art Gallery, which we have leased out. It's a management agreement, isn't it? Yeah. So with those 2 art galleries, so they're managed by people individually, but art at the moment is a really exciting space to be in, because there is so much happening right at this very time. We have 3 artists from the South Burnett up at the Bunyas with Goma, which is the Gallery of Modern Art, the Queensland Arts Gallery of Modern Art. They're doing a course up there, which there are people up there from about five different local government areas, and it's quite exciting to see that cross-border collaboration. And what they're learning up there, they'll be able to bring back to the community, which is very exciting. And also on the art space, we're under Queensland, the Central Queensland University, So they've actually just put out expressions of interest for a liaison officer for the area. So, and they will cover across a sort of cluster area, so that covers nearly the whole of Central Queensland. So they'll have 2 liaison officers. We won't be able to have them all the time. To be able to have a liaison officer in our area for art, to help our artists maybe expand what they're doing, maybe take something out of the area into another area, is quite exciting times actually, because that again also allows for cross-border collaboration. So if the Bundaberg School is doing something, if they're getting a specialist violinist out for their schools, that means there's a chance then to have other schools from our area go and enjoy that as well and maybe learn from that master. So it's really exciting times, so I do get a little bit emotional about that because it's just so much that's happening and yet I can't see anything, but I know it's there under the covers happening. There's also, as I said before, the Regional Arts Development Fund. And with tourism side of things, with all your big centres, we have some amazing big centres. And we always get commented on how wonderful they are and how wonderful our volunteers are, because we do have some amazing volunteers in our park galleries and big centres and heritage centres across the whole South Burnett. And we are very blessed to have such wonderful people with us. We also do, and some of our volunteers actually go away and do some of the shows for us. So we'll send them away and they'll go and do some of the camping expos and things like that for the South Burnett Regional Council, which is wonderful, for Discover South Burnett. We also do regional flavours. We go down to Brisbane every 12 months and do a show down there for the full weekend. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but to have the whole of the South Burnett in one area, we have wineries, we have food stalls, we have everything that is sold in the South Burnett down at Brisbane at South Bank, and we have Jason Ford who goes and does his little show up on stage in the piazza and on the food, on the taste stage. It's just wonderful to see. You actually have to go down because you will be surprised how wonderful it is and how much of an impact we have within that area. We've had people that came down with us that have had orders from Melbourne now, which they wouldn't have gotten. So now they've got people ordering stuff from Melbourne to our local suppliers here. And I think that's incredible because that wouldn't have happened with that regional flavours for those people. So that's about me. So any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Danita. The next area is that of planning and property, and Councillor Terry Fleischfresser looks after that particular portfolio space. So Terry, you might like to say a few words as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have the portfolio of property and planning. After the last election, the council got quite a caning over 2 things. One here, my mate with the short straw was road, which was the top of the tree. The second one was planning and development. The council had achieved a reputation of too difficult to do business with. The engineers were too stringent in their requirements for when assessing buildings and applications. So the Mayor and I sat about we had about 30 one-on-one consultations with real estate developers and a whole plan of stakeholders in that area. And in that we found that there was some blockages within the department and that there were some problems within the planning department. Since then, we've sorted that all out. We've had to make a few changes and we've been able to turn that around. So much now that we are a really good green spot at the moment. The development applications we're seeing across council has been absolutely strong. If you look at the things that are happening across the South Burnett domain, you've got the wind farm, 850 billion. You've got a new hospital coming for 68 billion. You've got Swickers, 60 million on an new floor. We have 20 million coming into a Bunnings store. We have people like Cromptons who are spending huge amounts of money in expanding their business at the moment with the boys here. We have a great interest in 3 big extraction agencies at the moment, opening up new gravel pits for road bases and a whole lot of things like that, like big one at Madooma and several others. We also have a lot of other, we have got about 35, 40 applications sitting on the moment, ready in the process to being processed through the various stages of what we've got to bring forward in their plans. The other one is the solar farm has been on and off for a significant period of time because the applicant is not providing some of the information that are required to get that across the line. I would think that it will come to probably the November council meeting to make a final decision about that one. But the good news is that since I've had this portfolio, in the last 12 months of the previous council, they produced 435 building application approvals for the year. In our first year, we've done 888, which is double the amount of business that has been walking out of the South Bend for a reputation that business was too hard to do with the South Bend Regional Council. So we've been able to turn that around. So we are in a really good spot at the moment. For a rural community, a rural council like we are really punching well above our weight in the way of development applications coming through our process. The other good thing is that we're closely looking at our asset management programs. We've invested heavily, as a council, we've invested heavily on some really good, up-to-date, factual information, particularly through the Sport and Rec Plan, which will be coming out its final draft shortly, and our new asset plan that we'll be getting money for shortly to be able to continue on with that one. And that will assist us. That's one of the biggest problems the council has going forward for the future, is to be able to maintain the amount. We've got over $1.1 billion worth of assets, and a lot of them are ageing assets that we have to either stop spending money on, demolish them, or build new ones. So we've got to go through ways of how we can find the funds through grants and applications to be able to replace these assets. And it's not going to be an easy task. There are some things, and there's going to be some great heartaches in it. And it'll encompass all of the sporting facilities across the South Bend, all of the parks and gardens, a whole lot. So there's a lot of good information coming out of these plans. Now, you can't make good decisions if you don't have really good financial facts about where you're going and the asset, the state of the assets. So that's one of the smart things we've done. We've been fortunate enough to be able to grab Works of Queensland money. I think we've got, about $8 million. And we haven't gone off and spent that money on new things. We've used that money to maintain a lot of the older buildings that we could never find the money to maintain them. So we've been very responsible in that regard, that we've made that money work appropriately and profitably in the areas that we need to, because at the end of the day, that money's got to come from somewhere, and generally comes out of general revenue. So that's, and we were due for another round, I think, in next year, for another July next year for Works of Queensland money. And councils across the state will say that's the best money that's ever come out of state government, because it's money that's not earmarked. The most frustrating thing about when you get money from state governments or the federal governments, they tell you what to spend it on. This is the first time we've ever seen money in 30 years, and I think the previous CEO said he's never seen money like this that come to council without any strings and attachments. So we're best in a position to be able to spend that money more wisely across the whole sector of our community. So for the property and planning department, that's where we are at the moment. We're reassessing a lot of the assets we have to go forward with, taking stock of those things, and there'll be some difficult decisions to be made over the next couple of years. But it's a very responsible position, and we are just thrilled. We're very proud to say that we have not let one development application slip through our fingers since this council came in. The only ones that have withdrawn are ones that came to us, spoke about it, and they finally found out financially it didn't stack up as an application or a proposition, but we haven't let one slip away, so that's a good thing for us.
Thank you. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you're having an appreciation of the broad spectrum of involvements of council, and it all takes dollars and cents that needs to be carefully budgeted for. And Councillor Rosmite is the financial portfolio holder, looking after finance, ICT and human resources. So Councillor Hope, I'd like to say a few words. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, and lovely to be here. So, as the Mayor said, my portfolio is finance, ICT and HR. Finance, of course, is all to do with balancing the budget. There's a lot of information in here, so I won't go through it on where the money comes from and where the money gets spent. And it's always a bit of a challenge to make sure at the end of the day you haven't spent more than what you've brought in, but that's the challenge of it. One of the sources of funding we get is the Federal Assistant Grant, which is rather unfortunately called the FAGS grant. Through the last 10 years, that's actually, we get less now than what we got 10 years ago. So that makes it a bit of a challenge, and we therefore have to get the money from somewhere else, which unfortunately usually ends up being the ratepayers. But it does mean that we're fairly independent. Over 80% of our income comes from the rates, so we're less dependent on grants, which other councils are very reliant on. And of course, if that money stops, all of a sudden they haven't got enough money. ICT, of course, is to do with the information and computer technology. We've got a lot of offices and a lot of staff, and we have to store a lot of sensitive information on ratepayers and residents, so it's important that that information is kept secure, and all the planning applications have to be kept for a certain number of years. So there's an awful lot of work in that space, usually by IT gurus beavering away in the background, making sure it's all being kept secure and safe. And cyber security, we all know about lots of spam and all the things that are out there that we need to make sure don't access our information. HR, we have 300 plus staff, and we want to make sure those staff are all working to their best potential and working to do the best for our region. We have some fantastic staff, we're very lucky in that area, but we need to make sure that they follow all the workplace health and safety regulations, they're kept safe. We have a bit of a mission of zero harm at work. We want to make sure they're kept safe, and also that they're working effectively to benefit our region. I think that sums up my portfolio. And of course, as the Mayor said, I have Division 6, which is very much the sort of western side of the South Burnett. So it's a very large area, but all parts of the region are very important. So that sums up my area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Councillor Hyde raises a very interesting point, that being the federal assistance grants, referred to as the FAGS grant. This is money that comes from the federal government. It's part of the GST. It was introduced back in 1996 on the basis of 1% of the GST was returned back to the states. There's a separate body within Queensland that then distributes those funds out to the councils within Queensland. They do the same in all the other states within the country as well. It's based on a formula that I doubt that any of us clearly understand just how exactly it is done. But there's a couple of points I'd just like to mention to you. The 1% that it was originally started off with, the value of that 1% has now reduced to something like 0.55%. So through a lack of indexing, through a lack of not keeping abreast with the charges, and I believe that our finance guru has done some numbers that would suggest that over a period of time we have actually lost what should have been $3 million more. $3 million in our budget would make one hang of a difference to our life in council at the moment. And to cover all of the areas and all of the territory in which a council is involved, to have to be able to maintain all the services that we do. There's only, if the government through the federal assistance grants is not keeping up, then the only other opportunity that council has of achieving or gaining income is through the rating system. And of course some people find that quite unfair. The other alternative is just to get rid of a whole range of services that we currently provide. And you will never get everybody to agree on what services, if any, should be done away with. So it's a case of trying to balance as best as we possibly can, maintaining all of the services that we do, be as frugal as we possibly can. In the past 12 months, 12 months ago, we reduced our staff numbers. We did a number of things within council to save money within the business of council itself. Lester will talk about that in a moment. I just want to just say my portfolio area is in relation to economic development, looking after issues of governance, communication, and also promotion of the area. What we really need in this area is more rate payers so that the load is shared among a greater number or a bigger population of people. We continue to promote our areas, our region through regional flavours. There's a range of other activities that go on. We promote our region through lobbying with every politician that we can put our hands to. Issues of telecommunications, issues of the road transport systems within the area. There's a whole range of things that make our region attractive for investors to come in and do business within the area. So that's the field of endeavour that I operate in. Of course, that's assisted. I'm assisted by each of the councillors, the CEO and the senior staff as well. But what we really need is more business activity within the area that may bring forth larger numbers of people to live in the area. Take, for example, Swickers, currently the largest employer within the South Burnett, with I believe something like 750 employees, probably likely to grow a little. We have Tarong Power Station. There's talk at times as to just how long Tarong will be in existence. We're going chasing more water for the area, believing that water is another incentive. Perhaps water used in a different way for different activities may create additional business opportunities as well. So we do promote our region as best we possibly can, and we do try and bring forward new businesses into the area. And we're very encouraged when new business does come into the area, even though they may only engage or employ 5 people, 10 people or whatever. That's all good. That's all good news for our region. All right, I won't talk any longer, but your questions, if you're saving some questions, think of them. And whilst I hand over now to the Chief Executive Officer, Mark Pitt, the role of the Chief Executive Officer in Council is a very important function for us as a Council. The Chief Executive Officer is the person whom we rely on very heavily for the issue of interpretation of the laws, to give direction, keep things running smoothly, that we don't fall into the pit holes. We had a big training session today. You've probably heard of Balcarra. You've heard of, no doubt, some of the local governments in Queensland that have run into trouble, or at least some of the mayors within Queensland, Ipswich, Logan, Fraser Coast was another one. There's another. But we have had an intense training session today. There's a number of other training programs being rolled out. So we as local government are instruments of the state government. We are controlled very heavily by rules, laws and legislation. So Mark, I'll hand it over to you to further expand on those things. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. An absolute pleasure to be here and lovely to see you. As Keith said, I started with council on the 2nd of July, so newly mended and just over the 3-month mark now. So been settling in, learning the organisation, getting around the region. I must say we've had an absolute love of the region, and in my younger days, particularly in rural youth and different times for those who remember the rural youth years, spent a lot of time out in this country, and so myself and my family are very, very thrilled to be back. We've purchased a property in the region, and yeah, just loving it. It's been really good. certainly loving the welcome that we've received. I've been afforded the privilege of working with our council, and I say our council because it's not mine, it's not the council's, it's really all of us, it's ours. And with these sorts of roles, you're afforded a privilege to be in a leadership and an operational role for a period of time, and we're custodians of that role, and we work going forward. So I've been learning the organisation, learning the business, getting around the communities with all the councils, and I've been really appreciative. We've done a divisional tour of every one of our divisions. One of the interesting little snippets, and I'll talk with this, I won't talk to it or at it as such. We're trying a range of different ways. We're starting to play with some ideas about how we conduct these, and this being my first ever listening tour, is about how we can get information out. Part of the question is, what do you want to know, I suppose, and so with this handout it's a little bit of an attempt just to see, is it the sort of things you're interested in, what do we want to know for next year's or going forward, where can we help? As I said, I was doing that, we've done the divisional tours, and since being here, if you actually put our road network together, and it is in our little book, and I picked Menango, if I thought, where could I go if I was in Menango? The road network of South Burnett stretches from Menango to Katherine in the Northern Territory, so we're just shy of Darwin. So if you put every unsealed, sealed kilometre of road together, we get from Menango to Katherine. I've had the pleasure of driving 2/3 of the road network in the last 3 months. So it's my plan to get around. The last set's probably going to be a little bit longer and a bit more tricky because there's a lot of little roads and going back and double backing to get into different places. But I've always believed one of the things, and particularly in my role, it's really nice if someone rings up and they're saying, oh, road X or road Y, and this is the problem. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, I've been there, I've had a look, seen it, and certainly have spent a lot of time and energy, and I do appreciate travelling around with the councillors. There's a couple of other little things that we're looking at trying to do, and one of the things that you'll see in our information we've prepared for this tour, the sheer volume of correspondence that we get via phone, via email, via text, later formal correspondence. There's a massive amount of correspondence and information that comes into the council. Over this next 12 months, and this is going to sound really simple, but it will be rolled out slowly but surely. Everyone who writes in or sends a request into council that requires an action will receive an acknowledgement. And in that acknowledgement will be the reference number for the document so that we can track it back down the track if something goes astray. Firstly, it's just good manners. Secondly, it's an easier way. So a lot of the time, if something ends up starting off as a piece of correspondence and ends up with me, it's become a problem somewhere along the line. That little reference number is so very important because it allows us to track back and we'll see what's happened to it. Or in some cases, sadly, what hasn't happened to it and what actions need to be taken. So one of the things that will be rolled out is that we get our fair share of information too. There might be a conference in Singapore that someone sends and they say, oh, come and learn about your pet cat or something or other. That's not what we're talking about. The stuff that requires an action where someone writes in, there's a requirement, there's a need, that correspondence is acknowledged, you're given a reference number. And certainly if there's anything tonight, the urn is one, which was a bit of a failing, acknowledged. So rather than taking a customer request on the urn, I've taken the urn back and we'll get it replaced or repaired, probably replaced knowing urns when they go down. So that was the first.
Do you think we can afford it?
I think so. So that was the first one. But if there's been a request about that, and this is where a gap that we want to fill, you should get an acknowledgement with a reference number, then the request can be tracked back and there can be action. Our council is fundamentally a good little council. It's stable, it does some very good things. Its sustainability, and it was mentioned before, we operate a $1.1 billion business. Our operational budgets vary between $50 and $60 million a year. Significant capital budget, so operational capital. Our asset base is about that $1.1 billion. We certainly have our community service obligations, as all councils do. But also we have very much a business and it operates as a business. And with the state government, it's being actually quite often now measured more and more through the audited statements as a business. We have sustainability ratios and a set of measurements that the state gives us out, and those ratios and that reporting has to be conducted every year. So the organisation operates on that business fronting with its community service obligation. And I suppose that's pretty much all I was going to say tonight, as far as happy to take any questions, happy to certainly a cup of tea afterwards, have a yarn and have a chat. I've been, as well as driving the network, we've been out and about and been very active. As I said, we're just loving the region, absolutely loving being here, loving the people. There's just so much to do and so many things on. Saturday night here was an absolute corker, and congratulations to everyone who organised it. The fundraising for Lifelight was just a great night. Now, we're very, when I say we, I have the royal we, my wife and I, we're very, very chuffed and very pleased to get out to things. We've been to a heap of events. The only thing I ask is that there's only one of me and there's lots of you. And there's lots on, and so just sometimes I can't get to everything because we're already pre-committed to something. But there's hardly been a weekend that we've been home because there's just so much on and there's so many things to do. The art gallery, as Danita was mentioning before, Wandi this week, Friday night, is actually the Council Acquisitive Art Prize, so we're heading over and having a look at that. There's just plenty on. It's just a lovely area, a lovely community, and very thrilled to be here. Very much looking forward to working with you for the betterment of our council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Now, we've been out here in Maidenwell for these listening tours on two previous occasions, and so this is the third occasion. So who's been here now for the three occasions? Yep. Good. Yep. So on the previous 2 years, councillors have come out solo. Mark has a desire and a wish to come out and along to these get-togethers so that he and his executive team can get to know the ratepayers who make up our great and wonderful South Burnett region. So just to acknowledge that effort, Mark, and Aaron, Peter and Lester for coming out to support the the message that we are delivering, and also to hear the comments that you will deliver back. Now, you're not prevented from asking questions, so if you've got questions, feel free. If you want to save them until the presentation's over, that's fine, but feel free to ask questions, state your points, those sorts of things. More than happy to hear them. Now, Peter O'May is the General Manager of Corporate Governance and Planning, and deals with the preparation of the corporate plan and the operational plan. We talk about budgets. We put a lot of emphasis on budgets. The budget is technically the third plan that we put together. Before the budget is drawn up, we need to develop a corporate plan and an operational plan. A corporate plan that Peter will describe, and an operational plan that sort of says, well, this is the way we're going to deliver it, and the budget is, well, this is how we're going to fund it. Peter, over to you.
Okay, thanks Keith. Yeah, it's Peter O'May, the General Manager of Corporate Services. So, as a General Manager with Lester and Aaron, we support the CEO, so we're the operational arm of Council. All the councils talk through their portfolio, so they deal with the strategic direction, the policy setting, and we're the operational delivery arm. So we have a number of teams underneath us that are involved in the service delivery, making sure we do all of our immediate statutory requirements, look after any regulatory requirements that we do have, and implementing the decisions of council. So council are the decision makers as an operational arm. The officers and all of the staff, we deliver those decisions. So it's basically the split. As Keith talked about our corporate plan, so that is our highest hierarchy of a number of documents. We have, we haven't got the count there, but there's numerous documents. But the corporate plan is the hierarchy, and that sets the really strategic things, and I should have actually prepared. So luckily I had one, so I might just go through the just probably the top level. So some of the statements that we are looking at. Building a vibrant, healthy, supportive and inclusive community. So that's looking at enhancing our community, our environment. I don't know, we did have copies of these. Now you've got it down there. So yeah, so in environment, a sustainable environment proactively and responsibly managed in partnership with the community for future generations. Organisational excellence, an organisation that is characterised by effective leadership, responsible management and quality service delivery. Growth and opportunity, which Keith had talked about earlier. A strong and sustainable regional economy supported by diverse sectors and innovative planning mechanisms. Within infrastructure, the provision of quality services and infrastructure for our community that is planned, provided, managed on sound asset management principles. So there's a number of principles underneath that. So our corporate plan runs for a series of 4 years. So that's over that. The term is what council is striving to meet. Out of that falls an operational plan. So that drills down. Our operational plan is a more detailed document that sets out for the next 12 months. So for 18, 19, 19, 20, we have a separate operational plan which goes into more detail about the services or the programs that we're going to look at running over that. They fit in with the budget. So if we say in the operational plan we want to deliver this, then the budget needs to reflect that. And it's no good having aspirational statements in a corporate plan, having a completely separate operational plan that doesn't link back to that, and then having a budget that won't fund any of those things that we're doing. So there is a big balance, and I think you can see, probably looking at infrastructure is a great example where we've talked about what the level of assets that we do have to manage. And we can say we can go out and provide infrastructure at this level, but if we don't have the budget to do that, then it's unreasonable expectation. So that's part of our role, is try and get that balance right, is what we aspirationally want to achieve and what the community can afford. And so that's why there's been a big focus on, with this council going forward, is actually taking stock of what we've got, getting a good handle of the condition, and making smart decisions that we can manage what we've got, that we don't run into trouble by trying to build all new shiny things and let go what is currently there. So probably a quick tie in about the corporate operational plan. We have, as the general manager, we have different branches that we look after. So in my area, corporate services, I have the environment and waste branch, look after our public health, the compliance team, mosquito management, obviously the waste side, but waste disposal, waste collection is in that branch. Libraries, one of our favourites, the libraries, the Indigenous Affairs branch. Libraries is also probably one of my favourites because it doesn't give me problems like the dog problems, whether they'll be wild dogs or we certainly get a big headache. I rarely get complaints from the libraries, and we certainly get, and we have a great library team that get a lot of accolades for our library services. Planning and land, Councillor Presser talked about our planning branch, so we look after the town planning side, but also building, compliance and plumbing. Social and corporate performance, so Benita touched on the community grants program, our arts, our social performance. Our customer contact is under that. The other side of corporate performance, we talked about operational plan and the corporate plan, but we have a large number of governance structures that we have to sit under. So we have things like our risk management, internal audit, fraud and corruption prevention. So that, yeah, I suppose as the poorer cousins of the state and federal governments, we get layered with everything that they don't want to do, plus. But there are a lot of legislative checks and balances that we need to look after. So our corporate performance, our annual report is coming out shortly. So within our annual report, we look at our aspirational statements in our corporate plan. We look at what we wanted to achieve in the operational plan. And so the annual report is basically a report on how we've gone in achieving that. So sometimes it might be what we have achieved in those areas, sometimes it might be we haven't achieved what we wanted to. And it's just as important to look at what we haven't achieved and why we haven't achieved, so we can maybe adjust our operations or our strategy. And natural resource management, parks and gardens is the final branch that I look after, so from an operations side. And I think that's probably all I'd talk about mine. So yeah, certainly a lot of areas there, so any questions in those particular areas, happy to catch up with people.
Thank you very much, Peter. And now Lester will talk a little more specifically about the budget, unwrapping the budget as it were. And it's very much a big juggling act from the point of view that we try to preserve the services that we need to deliver out to our rate base. The rate base is a very large community. We have something like 17,500 ratepayers throughout the South Bennett, and we deliver a moxa of services out to the ratepayers. We would really like to have more money inflowing from the federal government. That's not to say that we don't get. I believe we get something like 6.5 million, 6.7 or 8 million from the federal government. We do receive other grants for specific purposes, but as Councillor Hite said, because that money from the federal government is not coming through, has made us as a council more self-sufficient in the sense that a greater proportion of the revenue that we have within the South Bennett Regional Council comes from ratepayers. But if more money comes from ratepayers, and lesser from the government, it means that the rates probably, the rates have gone up. Now, Lester, over to you to talk about unwrapping the budget so that we can all understand it. Thank you.
So, hi everyone. So my name's Lester, and the Department of Finance or finance area that I look after has a few streams to it. There's the financial operations, accounts payable, debtors, looking after the banking, financial compliance, which is the preparation of the budget, our dealing with the auditors, preparing for audit, and those compliance type issues. We also have IT in there, which Councillor Ross spoke about. Is Councillor Ross here? Property, which Terry spoke about. Plant and fleet. Workshops is in this area as well as the business system. So we are local governments, as has been alluded to here. We were created by state legislation, the Local Government Act, and specifically relating to the area of finance that I'm here to talk about. There's specific requirements in terms of a budget that we have to do. They are in the handout and the flyer that you've been given here tonight. But we have to have a 3-year budget, but it has to have a 10-year forward forecast as well. And the reason for that is what you'd appreciate is you want us to be here for the long haul, delivering the services. So we have to prove to ourselves and prove to the state and others who watch in and you that we are actually sustainable over that longer term period. Some of the things that we have to have for the budget is a balance sheet. For those of you in business, this will be nothing new to any of you, or even not if you're in business, you understand the financial side of things, cash flows, an income statement, profit and loss statement, and changes in equity. We also have to produce a certain set of policies, a debt policy, because we need to look at what our debt raisings are over the period to fund our services going forward. Give that due consideration. An investment policy to ensure that there's no loss of value to any funds that we invest to earn interest on. We're dealing with public monies after all, and that's the prime purpose there. There's a revenue policy which determines at high level where our revenue will come from in the year, and underneath that there's a revenue statement which then starts to talk about our differential rating, our fees and charges, our water rates, our sewage rates, and the other rates that we levy, and you see on the rate bill. If you're in the rural, you only see a general rate and some other charges. In the towns, you see water, wastewater, and waste as well. The budget itself is about It's $64.5 million is an operating budget. Our capital is $22 million. And that's around about per year. So it's a reasonable size budget, and it's even having said that it's a reasonable size. It's often difficult to balance given the competition for services and how we actually fund all the services we'd like to have for the year. The main income sources that we have, and we've talked about them around the table, we have fees and charges, which is like your hall hire, animal registrations, those sorts of things. We have interest received, we just talked about investments, other income, which is really just general sort of income, rates and charges, which is the biggest of our income streams, sales revenue, which is mainly our contracts with the Mainways Department for the maintenance and the contracts under those. And the grants and subsidies. Grants and subsidies we've also talked a bit about that, so I will go into it a little bit. And it's in this handout as well, that you can look at your leisure later. Our grants and our federal assistance grant has declined about $842,000 since amalgamation, and that's about $48 per rateable property. With those declines, we have to look at whether the services are adjusted or whether you raise more revenue to keep the level of services up. So that's one impact. The swing from the highest year that we've had in 2011-12, we've lost $1.26 million in the federal assistance grant, which is about $72 per ratepayer. You would expect that a government grant would grow over time, and what Pete was talking about before, if it grew at 2% over time, that the federal government does tinker with the formula. It freezes money that's available to it for its own budgetary purposes, and that reduces or impacts what we then get in the final wash. But if it grew at 2% since amalgamation, we would be getting extra $146 per rateable property. If it grew at 2.5%, and they're just numbers that are reasonable sort of growth numbers, I think, you'd be getting an extra $173 per rateable property. And with those income losses, if you put reductions or offsets, we have to then make the decisions and the hard decisions at times about the rating. The main expenditure types for us is depreciation, which is about $15.5 million. It's been spoken about our $1 billion asset holdings or our asset classes. This is a book calculation, but it needs to be funded, and it's audited each year, so it's about $15.5 million. And it assists in funding that capital program that I spoke about before, the $22 million. We have employee benefits of about $23 million. That's the cost of employing the staff that Councillor Ross spoke about, and the cost of employing staff. Not just the wages, but the full cost. We have finance costs, which is our loans, interest on our loans, and materials and services, which is about 34%. We'll be buying goods and services to build our road network, or specialist consultants, or all of our purchases during the year. We also spoke in there about our own revenue, which is about 83%, as Councillor Ross spoke about. The decision there, and that's a really strong position to have for us. It is about sustainability. It is about our full delivery of services. I know it comes at a cost, and people out there, you're the ones paying for it, but that's where we have to focus, because the grants, as I spoke about, can be adjusted. There are other government decisions that are made out of our hands. This is controllable by council, and then your grants then coming along behind that. In the handouts too, there's graphs of where our revenue and expenditure is largely spent and received from. It's good bedtime reading later when you get home. Yeah, it's just quite detailed in there, so it really is worth looking at. The other thing, if I could direct you to our website to look at the annual report that Peter refers to. We try and put a lot of time into there as to where our services are and what we've done during the year. It also has our audited statements in there, which we go through each year. The other thing I would direct you to is our budget document, where we spend a lot of time trying to explain as best we can in a short space the budget itself, how it's made up, where the money's being spent, and what the underlying policies are that support it. The budget itself, too, I should mention, it's 64.5 million. It is made up of several different funding sources. Now we have water, which is funded from the water utility charges and access and usage charges. We have waste, which is funded from the discounts Ross here spoke about. The waste management levy, which is used to operate our tips and deal with the refuse that we have. And then also in that is the cost per wheelie bin, which we pay to JJ Richards, or which we contract out to JJ Richards. We also have in there the wastewater, we call it wastewater, but it's sewage, the connection charges for the urban areas that have a sewage system. And then we have the general operations. The general operations is everything else that Pete spoke about, that the guys will talk about for roads at the moment. It's the operations of all the centres, all the swimming pools, everything that Dania spoke about. It's the operations of all of those things. So it's not, when you look at our budget at 64 million, that's not all just from general rates or differential rates. That's from the whole range of services and the separately funded areas that we have. And the capital budget is split accordingly as well. So the depreciation that I spoke of, we try and channel that back to the asset classes that the calculation is made from. When I say asset classes, I'm talking about water, wastewater, waste, buildings and roads. It's difficult to break down, unwrap a budget in 5 to 10 minutes, as complicated as it is, but the timing of the preparation of the budget, we're due to start this month, which is typical. We start developing our capital budget about now, and it goes right through to the end of June when the Mayor, or the budget is finally adopted, but the Mayor needs to present his budget in about early June to have an adoption by end of June. So we go through a lot of workshops with the Council for the capital up to about February. From about January to March and April, we're looking at the operational side, that $64 million that I spoke about. And there isn't too many stones that we don't unturn during that preparation process. I think that the councillors are pretty well, I hope they are anyway, informed of what's in all those dollars that I'm talking about. So we go through a lot of workshops, tearing it apart, modelling to work out what the rate will be, and also then how the money is spent. So there's a significant amount of work in there. Just to finish off, I think I just want to say that whilst we are very autonomous, and that's the way we're set up, the state set us up to be quite run our own business for all the regions, and every other council would be the same, that not every region is the same, so they can set up their budgets and their services to manage the regions that they operate from within. We still have to report, and I think Keith spoke about it before, we have to report and do a 10-year financial plan each year, and we submit that to the Department of Local Government, and we also submit that to the Queensland Treasury Corporation. Now that's having an eye on our sustainability, how we're managing our funding, and what are we looking like in terms of certain set of, Mark spoke about some sustainability ratios, asset sustainability, how are we renewing our assets? Our operating surplus ratio, are we generating surpluses? And one other that I can't remember, but it is in net financial liabilities, I think it is, that's the ability to fund debt going forward. So, as I said, whilst we're autonomous largely to run the region the way you elected people to do it, we are still monitored somewhat by other government agencies or the government itself, and there's a report each year by the Auditor General to the Queensland Parliament. I think that's enough for me, Keith.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay. Thank you.
Listener has made a good point there, and that is the fact that whilst we can run our own business, we are very much monitored by the Queensland Treasury Corporation, the Queensland Audit Office, and we need to, I think one of the biggest responsibilities of us as a council is to ensure that we look after the assets that are owned by the whole of the region, and as the Chief Executive Officer has said, $1.1 billion worth of assets. It takes a fair hunk of money every year to sort of keep them in the order that's required. And there are asset management plans, there's a whole stack of instruments that sit within the functions and the operations of council where we need to report on how we're travelling in relation to these matters. So we're under careful watch as well by those instruments of government, state government, that we need to report to. And now to finish off the involvements of council, call on General Manager Aaron Meehan together with Councillor Gavin Jones to talk about the issue of roads, and they'll give a very detailed outline as to the volume of work that's been done in the past 12 months in terms of audits and those sorts of things, what we came up with in terms of the shortage of monies required, what we found, what we discovered, those sorts of things. So over to you, Spud and Aaron. Thank you.
Alrighty, so thanks Mr Mayor, and excuse me, thanks very much for coming along. And basically what I'll do is just give you a quick outline on what we as a council have decided that needs to happen, and then I'll hand over to Aaron. He's our General Manager for Infrastructure, and he will run through the process, how he believes that it's going to be done through the operational side of things. So the people who were here 3 years ago, I'll just take you back there. If you remember, I come here and I stood up and I said that we needed to change the way we were doing and surfacing the roads. We weren't doing our work on the roads properly and all that sort of stuff. And we needed to change the service levels and all that sort of stuff. So what I'm about to explain to you now, it's taken 2 years to get to, and I think you'll find for the people who are here, I think you'll agree with me that it's exactly what I spoke about 2 years ago where we need to get to. It's been a long, hard fight. We've had to have some changing in staff and all that sort of stuff. We had to get people in positions where they wanted to be positive and make a change and work with the team, the council here to make a difference and try and service you people a whole lot better. And that's why this guy's standing beside me now. We've also got another manager and also a new CEO and a few other changes throughout our staff. So we've got 3,044 kilometres of road, which is about a 50-50 split. It's 1,500 kilometres of dirt, obviously, and 1,500 of seal. So what we've had to do, we had to go back and try and work out where all the damage was. We had to get all the information on the network so that we knew the roads were buggered. We knew that. People kept telling us. We knew that, and we couldn't argue, we couldn't defend it. So what we had to do, we had to wind back the clock, go back, and we brought in the RACA system, which is the Road Asset Condition and Assessment System, which it's set up to a suspension on a car. It's got a video up on top, and now that we have the whole 3,044 kilometres of our road network completely videotaped and recorded on a computer, where these guys can just go, if someone rings up and says, I've got a pothole out here at Maidenwell in Poole Street, bang, there it is, you can see it straight away. So we've got all the whole road network is completely recorded. The other thing it does is it's hooked up to the suspension, and I've had people say to me, oh, but you put them in a four-wheel drive and all that sort of stuff, and they run over the top. And well, it's not quite that sort. It doesn't anyway. We'll move on, but it gives you an indication, and also the other thing that it has is it has a GPS location. So when you've got to slow down to a 20-kilometre speed limit to go across a road, it will actually, you can stop the car and the guy presses the button and it gives you a GPS location. So these guys download all that sort of stuff, so it's got all that information. And we've got a map now, and it is covered in red dots, meaning that it's high priority roads where people have got to slow down to 20 kilometres, right? And it is right across the region. And the unfortunate thing is it's not in one area where we just go in, bang, clean it all up. We've got to try and work in with the road maintenance program that we're trying to work out now. We're going to try and get it to a 3-month stage where, like October, November, December, and when we go through October, we come November, December, January. And it should be, I hope it'll be printed, and the CEO has assured us that it will be put into the paper, and it will also be accessible on the web page for the South West Regional Council. But Aaron is putting that program together. We're almost to the point now where we're probably 2 or 3 months away from finalising it, and that will certainly take into account all the high priority damage that we have right across the region. The other thing that we have moved on to is the 3 different levels of service. So we're going to try and resheet, like completely gravel resheet. We have a road network of 1,500 kilometres, and about 80% of that road network of 1,500 k's has no gravel on it. So we can't say, Aaron, send the grader out there and do a maintenance grade on such and such a road, because all you're doing is turning up the subgrade, you get 5 mil of rain on it, becomes very dangerous, and it chops up and it just turns back into rubbish. So we've got to try and get the gravel back onto that dirt network. So the gravel resheeting program will look to address 80 to 100 kilometres. Now we used to operate on about a $1.5 million budget for that. We've now boosted it up to $4.5 million. It's the biggest gravel resheeting program in the history of any of the councils, I believe. So we've got that. The next step will be the full maintenance grade with the water truck. So we'll send out a grader and all that sort of stuff. He'll do all the stuff, clean all the vegetation off the road, and the people who live locally, if you go out here and have a look at Pimpinbungie Brooklands Road, you've got to say that's heaps better. I'm not saying it's perfect, and there's great bits of bitumen broken off the edge that we'll address, but the viewing and the drivability of that road has improved tenfold. So that's the sort of stuff we're going to do. We're going to clear away all the vegetation in the table drains, open up all the pipes and all that sort of stuff with a full maintenance grade, and we hope to cover 200 kilometres of that particular work. And then we go to what we're going to refer to as a patrol grade or a dry grade. You'll have a grader just run the roads with a roller on the back of the grader, as you see out west or whatever. They'll also address they'll be the low priority roads. So we're talking about 5-10 cars a week. All right, so just need that road. Every road needs servicing and at some level, and because it's only a 5 to 10 cars, 5 cars a week or something like that, I think we can get away with the patrol grade, dry grade, and I'll explain to you how that's going to benefit us moving forward. So if you're working on a 1,500 kilometre balance of dirt road, and we're going to try and do 100 kilometres of gravel resheet and 200 kilometres of full maintenance grade every year. So that's going to bring 300 kilometres of our roads that are very poor at the moment to a high level. So you put that over 5 years, we hope to get that whole dirt system back up to a very high standard. In the meantime, while we're rolling those 300 k's over, we're going to try and at least grade the road once every year. So that'll leave 1,200 kilometres. And Aaron will explain this a little bit longer, in a little bit more detail. We have the availability, hopefully, to try and achieve 200 or 2,200 kilometres of dry grade or patrol grade. So that indicates to you that we'll almost have enough to grade all the other dirt roads nearly twice a year. Alrighty, so the high priority roads will take the priority, and I'm talking about 500 cars a week or something like that, school bus runs in particular and that sort of stuff that meet, and they're all going to work in, and Aaron will explain this and take it a step further with the maintenance program, and all those high priority defects right across the region. So our focus with the budget is fixing our assets, and Pete and that referred to it later. We're not going to try and build new assets because we can't afford it. Our assets now, the road assets, are in a mess. So we need to fix up what we got before we start rebuilding it. So that just gives you a quick outline of where we've come from. It's taken 2 years to get here, and I'm really comfortable where we sit. And I know that I said this a couple of years ago, and it's taken a hell of a battle to get here. And I'm very happy that we're about to unroll it on our roads. And Aaron will now explain to you, I guess from the operational side of things, how what we want is going to happen.
All right, thanks Councillor. I've got nothing left to eat. Every session he steals what I say, so I'm very pleased to be in Maidenwell. I've got three boys on the floor and they were playing up like $2 lawnmowers, so I was in the car pretty quickly tonight, so very happy to get out. Probably a couple of things with my area. I've been here for about 10 months now. Look after a couple of areas, look after infrastructure planning, which is asset management, design, forward programming those in the asset space. Also short term and long term, around what we might do in the future, streets, chaos, water treatment plants, that sort of stuff. Other area I look after is water and wastewater. The council did a great job, doesn't need me to assist with their area anymore. She's got it pretty well covered. Water and wastewater is a very big area for council. I know it's probably one of the major issues up at Maidenwell, but it is a major part of our business and we have a lot happening in that space. It's often the area that's probably not the most appreciated until your tap doesn't work or your toilet doesn't flush. So very critical stuff that we do there. The other area that we look after, which is probably the most prominent at the moment, particularly in this council, is around the works, which is transport infrastructure. So your roads, bridges, stormwater, footpaths, all those sort of assets. So probably a couple of things in that space. Council, to be fair to say, council probably knows a lot more about their network in the last 6 months than they have in the last 5 years. Council spoke before about RACUS. RACUS is basically a video camera on the road. It actually takes a geo photo of the road every 10 metres, so we actually do go through, we map the entire network now. We basically put that on a rolling program, so whilst it doesn't fix the road for us, we actually, from an officer's point of view and as an asset owner, we have a very good understanding. We can map any area and have a look at how that network is performing and where we are. The biggest thing that we've done probably in the last 6 months is pick up the entire network. We actually put 3 of those machines in to do that. Over a 6-week period, we just made the decision to go and pick up the entire network, see where we are, what's going on, and make some decisions about that. It also allows us to go back and work with council around some of the options that are available to them, and also what the state of play is, so they fully understand where the network is at. Basically, coming out of that, we established that we probably have a substantial backlog across all of our asset groups, particularly in sealed and unsealed roads. It would be fair to say that the investment in the road network has probably been a little bit low over the last couple of years. And we're sort of able to inform council a lot more about what their expenditure needs to be to try and restore that network. So with that, this year, council made some very responsible decisions, in my opinion, with their budget. We really did listen to the advice that we worked together on. A lot of the upgrades in the new assets in the budget were removed from the full program. The asset, as the council said before, is very much about fixing and replacing assets. It's not just across roads, it's also across water and wastewater as well. We're very heavily focused at the moment on renewing our assets. We have an asset management focus. Lester spoke before a lot about sustainability and the checks and balances that are put in place on the councils. That is where we are right now, and that's where our investment will be coming into the future, particularly with the current council. Focus in that budget particularly is on resheeting and reseals. Again, we spoke before, we're doing $4.5 million this year of resheeting. Traditionally, council would only do about 1.5 million. This year we've got that up at 4.5. We also do a $3 million program in rehab and reseals over the next 3 years as well. So particularly our focus at the moment is restoring the resheeting network, the unsealed network, but also ensuring that we go through and we reseal the bitumen roads to make sure that we keep them in the condition that they're at, if not improve them over a period of 3 or 4 years, which allows us to come out with a much more better picture than what we are right now. So very positive moves. The other thing that council has approved in consultation, which was great, is the introduction, or we will be introducing regional maintenance teams across the South End. So when we fix the pothole in Maidenwell, at the same time we fix one in Kingaroy, at the same time we fix one in Dango, there will be service things that we provide across all of the infrastructure to ensure that we maintain it correctly, but also also make sure that we put a appropriate response times in those sort of things based on the level of investment that we have. The biggest thing is with maintenance, when you have a network in the condition that it's in, is to ensure that we invest capital money and maintenance money concurrently so that we can make good decisions around the network. We don't drive over potholes to fix potholes. It does happen, but we won't be doing that in the future. To make sure that we're a bit more well planned, we're introducing systems in the back end as well to make sure that those works are executed properly. The biggest thing is there's no unlimited funds of money. This year I think Council put the maintenance budget up by about $1 million, which is up to about 6.75 million. Still very, very tight for a network of this size. CEO said before, you've got a road network between here and Catherine. For a council, the area of this size, the road network is quite large. To be honest, it's fairly substantial. If you compare us to somewhere, say like Southern Downs, very, very similar in size, road network is a little bit smaller. Here it's a substantial network, just over 3,000 k's for an area of this size. It's a tough gig, okay? And I think it's a very big focus of not only us as officers, but also working with the council to make sure that we're on top of that over the next couple of years. So very, very happy about that. The last one I'll probably touch on too is we will be looking to publish our works program, our forward works program in the coming months. We're making a number of changes through the division at the moment that we've had in progress for a couple of months. We'll start to finalise those over the coming weeks. Probably the first thing you'll see in that is a published work program starting to produce across the unsealed network. When we're going to resheet, when we're going to grade, we're aiming to produce a quarterly program that we can publish so people have some reliability around when we're going to be there. The other thing is too, we want to interact more with the community as well. So with the maintenance graders, we spoke about doing resheeting heavy formation program, but also what we're going to be reintroducing is a zone maintenance program with the control graders. So if you have the same grader in your area all the time, obviously if you do the rough math, 1,500 k's of network, that's 3 graders, that's 500 k's of grader. So it would be the same grader that's going around. If you want to talk to the grader operator, we want to talk about the road and those sort of things, if you send the forward program, you know we're coming, you're more than welcome to contact us. We would really encourage that. There's probably been a couple of cases in the last few months where we've had some really good interaction, particularly with rural landowners around drainage. We've got some good results out of that. So when we go through with the heavy formation and the resheeting program, we will go through, we will clear the drainage, we will clear the vegetation with the limits of what we're allowed to do with vegetation. But the idea is that we go into and clean the corridor up. It allows us to maintain it over a long period of time without as much impact from weather events and those sort of things. We spoke before about the prioritisation around that. If you roughly do the math, you're looking at 1,500 k's of road. Of that, probably about 1,200 to 1,000 would be probably an estimate at this stage around what is actually a gravel constructed road. Over a 3 to 4 year period, that means that it will either be resheet or heavy formation road. So again, you'd love to do it all overnight. It won't happen overnight, but it is in progress at the moment. Again, we've close to $1 million already in maintenance on heavy formation resheeting this financial year. There'll be a large program that's going to be released very shortly to make sure that we get through that and get the network going again. So I think I've covered it pretty well, just of the road stuff. So the council's probably given a very good detail of that. Happy to take any questions in regards to road or any of the infrastructure if you like, or I'll be around after this as well. So please feel free to come and have a chat with me.
Could I receive complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint, and with the limits, or within the limits that council had available to them, tried to do things differently. But when the information came back that via the RACUS system, a complete audit of all the roads in the entire area, and through the systems and the external agencies that we use, together with the General Manager Aaron's own resources, to have been informed that we have a $10 to $15 million deficit as far as roads is concerned. There was no way that we were ever going to catch up unless we confronted the problem and did something by way of putting more resources toward the issue of roads. and we engaged an external consultant to come in and take a look at the entirety of our financial operations. And the suggestion was made relative to the road levy. The road levy simply was not in itself capable of delivering sufficient cash resources to reinvest back into the roads. And the road levy was a flat rate, and what has been done this year is to convert it into an operational cost. The 3.2 million that the road levy was delivering wasn't sufficient. It's been moved up to basically in the order of 4 million. Convert that as an operational cost in the same way that every other cost, each of the councillors have spoken about their particular areas of activity, all the other assets, services that are provided, and roads are now being treated as an operational cost in the same way that every other cost relative to the operation of council is. I make that as a comment to you on the basis of the reason why there was the larger the unimproved capital value would have represented a higher rating increase. Low unimproved capital values would not have noticed a great impact, but as the value of the properties increased, well then the rate adjustment increased along with it. So that's just a brief overview of that one. Now there are likely to be questions about a whole range of activities associated with council, so now is your opportunity to ask questions, seek further explanation, whatever you might like to say or suggest, and we'll take it on board. So it's over to you guys. Who'd like to go first?
Happy to start. That's probably the newbie in the room. My name's Tracy Corsby. My husband and I finished careers in Brisbane recently and have made a permanent and very purposeful choice to settle in Maidenwell and to invest in trying to reinvigorate a property we've bought and looking at other investments around the South Burnett. I have to say it's been an absolute joy. The community, and sorry, I'm just trying to get a positive spin on this. The community has welcomed us. This community is amazing, and it was no mistake we chose to reside here. They have opened their arms, they have supported us, they've encouraged us to do what we're doing on our property. It's been bliss except for the day I drive down and put my refuse in our transfer station. And that's the day where I think I've gone backwards in my life. It is abysmal. I hold one of my qualifications, tertiary qualifications, is in public health. That transfer station is perilous to our health on some days. It's greatly in need of work. I'm hoping, Ros is going to tell me, that there was forward planning in the 10-year forward budget, that there is going to be some work done on our transfer station.
There has been talk about Maidenwell's. Councillor Jones brought it up a few times.
We've spoken to Gavin at least once.
And that our manager for waste isn't here tonight, but he is on the track of trying to get this rectified for everyone. He does know the issues, so I can, if you leave me your number and that, I can get to.
And I'd just like to check that he does know all the issues, because blimey.
So what's that, just interested to what are the issues?
The lids of the bins are almost impossible to close for anyone that doesn't hold a fair height and a deal of strength. Therefore, it exposes, especially the food waste, to the birds, which then is spread everywhere and is disgusting, absolutely foul, and a health hazard constantly. We're trying to talk about economic development. You know, we want our campers who come, to our wonderful events here to stay longer, to come more frequently. They've got to go and use that rubbish disposal for their refuse at the end of their stay. blimey, why would you? It's frightful. I don't know if it's true, but we locals tell us that many of the folk who are tourists up on the Bunyas, because there's limited refuse disposal up there, actually bring their refuse down, so as they turn the corner to go home after a long weekend or a weekend, use the refuse, which is fine. They've invested in our community, but the bins overflow multiple times a week. To my absolute pride, there are times when Chris will take a rake down there and a pair of gloves, and on occasion has raked the whole area, because we couldn't bear to think someone's going to come in there and to see that atrocious mess.
It's been an ongoing issue, and further to the people coming down from the Bunyas, we have a lot of people coming from outside our region. I'll name Kuya, I know that Kuya, when I was in the hotel, I had people ringing me from Goodyear and Kingaroy because the big tips were closed or whatever, or they had to charge, they were paying or whatever, and they wanted to know if our little refuge station was open out here, and they would come out, and they continually do. They bring all sorts of stuff out. And technically, that transfer station is only there for the use of our farmers that don't have the wheelie bin. But everybody uses it, and then it becomes, it's more of an issue because it's created from people that don't live in the township, or the right, correct people are using it. And you're 100% right, Bunny Mountains people, all that sort of stuff, and it's all good and well, but there is a lot of people coming, like Kuya Dips, I think it's open 3 days a week or something like that, and so they're all coming up here using that. I know a lot of fellas work at Toronto, they come through with a ute load of rubbish, drop it all off there, and where these, I don't know how many people throw away washing machines and couches and all that.
Fertiliser bags this week, hundreds of them.
We can't all live in Maidenwell where we always throw out a washing machine or a bloody couch.
But we've got systems like Cumbria, Gavin, where they've got their lock and key system, where we've got land also out near Home Creek. And you know, the Home Creek dump is a wonderful provision. And
the community group, sorry for interrupting, but the community group has actually taken on board too, and we've actually tried, we sourced even trying to move it, because when you drive in from the Toowoomba side, it's the worst, you look straight in there and it's just the worst appeal, and we're trying to dress the town up and spend a lot of money. The community group is doing a wonderful job, so I take this opportunity to invite you guys to come in and join the community group if you feel like it. It'd be great, but we tried going down here to other points of interest and all that sort of stuff, and it just, same issue, because you're on a creek or near a creek and the overflow and all that, it's not really going to stop those people. And I've spoken to the council in regards to, can we put some cameras in trees, what do we do to stop it, you know? So I have taken it to council, and I think, and Roz has taken it further, and it's further discussion for us to have. So,
excellent.
I think,
Happy to. So were you thinking of maybe like having it locked and with its like colour?
Well, certainly that's how Home Creek started. I know now it's a bit more relaxed, but it's got that concrete, complete concrete, the two big, very large bins where you can back a vehicle in, put refuse out.
the other, we've actually asked council, I went to Craig Patch. We're actually looking at maybe putting something that's up very similar with the key set up and all that for local ratepayers and that sort of stuff up the back corner of the oval, and taking it away from the point of view of people and that up behind the towers and all that sort of stuff. So it has been discussed quite at length over a long period of time, but I just need these guys beside me to throw me 150,000 and we can get something like Cumbria.
He's got all my money this year already. What do you want to buy? I can't give it. As Lester said, I mean, we're in the process of putting together next year's capital works budget. Very timely that you should mention that one. It has been discussed in council on a number of occasions. So your further expansion on just who else uses it other than simply the people around Blackburn, it certainly emphasises the fact that this Maidenwell tip is servicing a whole wider audience than simply
May I connect to that? I'm also newbie here, so also fresh perspective on what's going on. And in addition to these issues, I think there is another issue. Our previous wheelie bin had 2 compartments.
Yes.
The new wheelie bin has 1 compartment. That's, I think, not the way to go. What you see in many places, and we have lived in an area where waste separation was a very big deal. And there was a different place for bottles, and there was a different place for glass, and there was a different place for cans, and there was a different place for organic, for paper, etc., etc. So almost all the waste was completely separate. You were referring to landfills. We come from a place where landfills were not viable because there was no place for it. Now, Easton is very big, 3,000 kilometers of road, only in the south, so a lot of place. But I think there's another issue here, that is the long-term perspective of waste management is waste separation. And what I do not see is any initiative here. I may be wrong, I'm new to the area, but I do not see any initiative to see what can be done about waste separation. And there are many ways to go about it, and in some areas it takes years and years before there is a full-fledged system that is working, but it's quite clear that in the long run is the only way to go. And I really, is there any initiative? Yeah. And as local community, sorry? Recycling, but then not just recycling, but very specific recycling.
Well, there was a circular letter that came through council on the 10th of September. The Palaszczuk government launches a $100 million waste management revolution. The issue of waste management is not just a problem in the South Alberta Regional Council, it's a problem elsewhere. So, it's one that we continue to I guess, struggle with to try and find the right solution that best suits the residents of the area. The other thing is that there have been recycling depots in different spots throughout the region, and then the glass price drops and they don't want glass anymore, and this is not marketable anymore, and you have that variation in there is a very unstable market for some of the recycling.
Yeah, but that's a chicken egg problem. As soon as you have a stable system of separate waste collection, the market becomes viable. And as long as there is no good system in place, of course the market is not viable. Why would people separate? But I think there's a problem with having your glass being collected in, I don't know what, Nanango, plastic in Bergen, etc. This place, this refuse tip here, would possibly be a wonderful place to have a place for glass, to have a place for plastic, for cans, etc. That's one of the possibilities. And then it's a matter of getting people to the point, persuading people to the point where they are prepared to put things over there.
I think there are a couple of things that are happening globally at the moment that I think will create a lot of change. I had waste management for 8 years in 2008, so there are a couple of things that are happening. One is the community does not want to pay for recycling or anything. Okay. We could have had it 20 years ago if we wanted to, but they won't do it. Secondly, the situation is, the second thing is now that China has refused to take any more waste. That's going to put a lot of pressure on Australia to be more inventive, to look within itself, to be creative. There is a lot of waste in IT stuff, there's a lot of waste in whatever we use. But it's going to come to a time in the very near future that if the financial benefit out of people investing in those areas is going to happen. And I think the pressure is going to be. The reason why Queensland is so far behind is Conservative governments over the last 30 years has kicked it out every damn time it's all shit, okay? And that's why we've been, without having a major state waste levy, but it is coming, it's just around the corner, the same old thing, state and federal government will promise you the bloody world, but give you nothing to help do it. And they'll flick it out to us to make it pay again.
But is the South Burnett prepared to take on a leading role, to be proactive, and to make sure that there is a positive energy here going on regarding waste?
What I can say is that there are a lot of people throughout the region who have similar thoughts to what you do. Ross,
we all would love recycling here. As Terry said, before we got into council, the South Bennett Regional Council put around a questionnaire to see if people wanted recycling. A lot of people did, but then they weren't prepared to pay for it. So
That's the same everywhere. You go from a place where there was no money either.
yeah.
That's not a problem. It's a creative organisation around that part.
We do have hopefully a container recycling coming in soon, and what'll be just in Kingaroy or Kingaroy Merton.
There'll be a container in Kingaroy and then Sugar at the other end.
We won't be able to resolve the issue of
No, that's
recycling,
good.
but it is certainly on the table. We talk about it. I guess it's a case of we'll stop talking about it and do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty.
Just as a very minor one, and without taking Peter's thunder, there's a couple of different things, and these are very minor, but actually we find them under-supported each year, and it's probably maybe we don't get it out enough. We currently mobile muster the recycled mobile phones. Council offices, libraries would love your old phones because they all go back for a recycling process. Printed cartridges, all that sort of e-waste. We've got the printed cartridges drop off. We've also just joined up with the National Garage Sale Trail. You think, what's a garage sale got to do with recycling? But it's about repurposing, reuse and creating a culture of recycling and working with people. 2021 October, information's coming out this week. If I can give a really big pitch, it is really good fun. I've been in other regions where it is. The amount of stuff that gets repurposed, recycled and reshared, for want of a better way of putting it. So if you want to have a garage sale, that's the weekend to do it.
My wife keeps telling me there's got to be another use for me.
Alrighty.
I would probably make the comment that while people in the area can't even get their rubbish in the bin, we have no chance of recycling anything. So that's what I've noticed. And that's, you know, we'll go down there and there'll be a garbage bag with all their scraps sitting on the ground. And,
Can I just say that, you know, I think you've really highlighted a real problem. It's not that Councillor Jones and Councillor Rolls haven't been telling us about it. I like the fact that you stated quite emphatically that it is a problem. Do something about it. And I think, as I said, Tracy, we're into the...
And there are numerous examples of very successful programs. So I think we can learn a lot from examples all over the world, essentially.
Peter's the General Manager of Craig Patch, our Manager of Waste Services. So Peter, you
I was just saying, as an industry, the Local Government Association, which is the peak body representing all the councils, have actually just come back from a study tour overseas, and looking at exactly that issue and we're the first to admit we're behind the rest of the world by the streets in this area, and a lot of it comes back to, well, probably two things: the apathy and dollars is the other thing. But but as a local government, the goal is to get to zero, and I think in the next 10 years is to. We're not going to do it overnight, but it is to get to the zero waste to landfill. And even with the government's introduction of the waste levy, that's basically trying, bit like the carbon tax, is trying to do the financial, because everything we dispose of into landfills will be paying levy, so especially particularly with commercial waste. So it's trying to make the recycling, while there's a cost of the separation and the China issue is contamination. They don't want the level of contamination to come through the recycling. So it is trying to, once the disposal of the recycling is becoming cost effective to keep it out of that stream. So yeah, the little steps along the way, and that, like our Cumbias and where we have got Home Creek, you can do separation, and we have some good, you call it old dump rats, but they're scavengers who will do the little bits of recycling. One of the other issues we face out here is transport costs. We can collect a whole heap of glass to get it to the market. It's not worth it. So, we've got a lot of challenges, but we certainly aware.
We have challenges, but we have a problem. The problem is here in Maidenwell. when we have problems, we like to be able to deal with it. So I
Keith, we had the same problem looking on many years ago, or whatever. New site for a start, not that site at all, somewhere else, but more access, better design so that your bins are a lower level where you can tip into quite easily and it can be maintained.
Larger bins.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a rural setting.
Yeah, absolutely.
all right.
Get an incinerator and go on the grid and pay for it.
I'll let her do that.
Okay. Any other
Aim for
questions,
the top.
Darryl? Or
Oh, you go. I can just point it towards Councillor Gavin Jones about the road name that we mentioned a year or two ago about changing the name of the road back to what it was.
okay.
From-
Yes, Aaron, you're in charge of that's.
No, we just spoke about that, Mr. Mayor. I meant to follow that up because we had we had a meeting.
What name is it?
Well, at the moment, it's Brooklands Pimpin-Budgie South. And it's very confusing because there's a Brooklands Pimpin-Budgie North, and the numbers start from Brooklands end, and they come up, and then they stop at Crossroads, and then they start again on the same road, and it's just, everyone gets lost, mail gets lost. What happened was that there was a bloke got hurt in the Scalier, and they went to the wrong, that drew the attention to it, but then we had a meeting here one night and I had some council staff out here, and going back to the good old days, council staff haven't followed it up, and here we are asking a question nearly 12 months ago, and I just, it's exactly what I just spoke there, and I said, I bet you we get a question tonight about that.
Well,
And
that issue was brought up at the meeting 2 years ago. We had a meeting where the landholders along the road were invited in, that was 12 months ago.
Yeah.
But a lot of the affected people that live around like where Roz is weren't invited to that meeting, and nothing seems to happen since.
Alrighty. Mr.
I'll follow that up.
Well, I think probably Aaron and through you, Mr. CEO, that one really is a customer to get it in the system and to make sure that. So Darryl, did you see?
Yeah, I'll get Tracy.
We'll sort that out.
it should go in the system because
Yeah, I know there are.
everything out here that night, and they took notes and they promised everybody at that meeting that they would get back to them, and I left it at that because I was told, and I'm not making excuses, I was told that the staff would get back, and I realised that fell off my radar, and I just remember when I seen Darryl and them here tonight, and I said, I bet you they asked.
I just want to make sure.
Can we have one of those customer reference numbers for that?
Yeah, well, that's all right.
Because we haven't heard any more.
That's why I wanted, to say.
Yeah, I'll get everyone
and we'll get a
surname,
reference.
So-
phone number, so all you know.
That's all. Was there a suggested name? It was talking to
Pimpin' Road, what it used to be.
We've
Get rid
spent
of it.
about 2 hours
So
talking about it.
as I said, Pimpin-Budgie South and North, you said Pimpin-Budgie Road. Is that what?
Continuous line.
Brooklands
That's right.
Brook area.
Yeah, so just get one road name.
That used to be Pimpin-Budgie Road.
Yeah, continuous.
That's just.
You want continuous.
It is.
Any other questions?
Everything.
2 years ago, when we had a similar meeting here, Spud, you brought up that when you took on the roads portfolio, you asked for a guarantee from Keith Campbell that the road levy would never be amalgamated into the general rate.
That's
And
correct.
Keith, you were here and you confirmed that you'd given that guarantee.
Okay, well, I will, I don't recall specifically, other than to say that the amount of money that came forward from the road levy was insufficient to be able to cater for the resources that were needed. And I did say in the election campaign, because there was quite a profile around the place. I think Mr. Newson may have been one of them, who was talking about getting rid of the road levy And I know I said to some people I'd rather lose the election rather than to get rid of the road levy. So the road levy, it has disappeared by way of name, but the money is still, within council, and it is more than the road levy amount that was raised previously. And we had a situation where some people from another region were concerned that rolling it into the general rates, you would lose track of the amount of money that went in, and the General Manager of Finance gave a clear indication that the equivalent, the value of money that is achieved as a consequence of the rolling will be put into the system as a bookkeeping entry, and then as it is used for the purpose of roads, it will come back out of the that account. So it's not that the money that comes from the road levy has disappeared from that perspective. There's more money.
Oh, yeah, definitely, because our rates have gone up by an incredible amount.
Well, let's talk it through, because this is the platform to
So
do
one
that.
of the things that I take offence to is that in all your media reports, and you sent out a letter to people who were seriously affected by it. In everything that I saw, you said that you amalgamated the road levy into the general rate, with it being a 2.5% increase. Our rates have gone up. Our general rate, which is rural rate, has gone up 20%. Menango residential block has gone up 27%, not 2.5%, which is what was being misled in the media that the increase was going to be.
The general rate increase was 2.5%.
Yeah, so in the media, why didn't you tell us that the general rate was going to go up between 20 and 30% rather than say 2.5%?
It did for you, but for the overall average was 5.6%. And you can talk in terms of averages.
So where has it only gone up 5%? If we've got a residential property in Menango, it's gone up 27% there.
You mean an urban house block?
Yeah, a residential block.
27%.
The general rate has gone up 27%.
Could you tell me what the unimproved capital value is of the Menango block?
That's not the overall amount of rates, that's what the general rate is.
What you need to do there, Keith, are you comparing the general rate with the general rate, or are you adding the road levy into the general rate from the previous?
That would
that's what the general rate's gone up.
Yeah, so but the road levy's in the new one. You need to add the road levy to the old one to do it.
If you, I'd be happy to take a look at that one for you. So, if you can, because I'm going to chase up something for Darryl as well.
I can do a request for that fee to the rest.
You can do it. Yep.
The other thing I'm kind of wondering about with the letters that were sent out to affected ratepayers signed by UP are saying that the increase is going to be so much for a financial year. Our first rate notice will come out, and that's the increase for 6 months.
The total rate is basically split in half. I mean, you pay 6 months worth in the first rate.
They said that this equates to a dollar amount of such and such for the financial year, but our rates are 6 months.
I'll take that on the chin, and absolutely and sincerely, that was a mistake. And without trying to, there was a clear error in the letter, and we thought most of the ones that had that error had contacted us. And I haven't seen, I don't think I've seen it, because I've actually personally written back to everyone who had that mistake.
We haven't written
We haven't written back.
But yeah,
Three separate
It takes 12 months, yeah.
answer at the meeting.
Well, yeah, well, if you haven't contacted us, we haven't written, but that's, I don't know.
I have contacted.
All right, well, yeah, happy to, because like, any of the correspondence that came in, I've personally written back to and apologised. That is a clear mistake, and you're exactly right.
And that is a very clear apology. It was an error that was done in the instructional letter, and it gave the wrong impression. Yeah. But in fact, the amount of money that comes as a consequence of the road levy is now more like $4 million, having rolled it in. And that $4 million is now enabling the work that is happening in the roads area to be done. It is simply a case of the complaints that came forward from roads. We have literally been lambasted. Every region that we've gone to, and it was a huge issue for the election campaign about the road levy and the condition of the road. The roads were the problem. In this past 12 months, we have clearly, as a consequence of the high level of auditing that has been done on the roads, we as a group of councillors have been told by way of fact that it's not just ratepayers complaining. They have every legitimate right to complain because the roads are a mess. So when a group of councillors, where's the board of directors, you might put it that way, have been told, and it can be justified, that the problem is real and the problem is worse than real. You don't have anywhere near enough money to even make any level of impact on the roads. We chose to act and do something about it. We engaged the services of professionals to come up with the conditioning situation on the roads. We engaged the services of an external in relation to taking a look at our overall financial resources and how we should deal with the situation, and rolling the road levy into the general rate. Yes, it gets rid of the road levy, but the amount of money that comes from the road levy has actually increased, and that money is being invested in terms of improving the overall road network. And I'm sorry, I missed your surname. Miller, right? Okay. Yep. I'll take a look at that one. Okay. Yes.
Does the council have an opinion or a stand on the proposed coal mine?
The Moreton Resources coal mine?
Yeah.
No, council has not needed to make a formal position on it. I think as councillors we have an individual view.
Yep.
The issue of the assessment on the coal mine will be undertaken by the state government.
We have a Director General's Department. They will make do all of the assessment. They will make a decision. We will be called upon to give an opinion as a concurrent agency, but those big infrastructure decisions like it come out of the Coordinator General's Department.
Okay. So you've had no communication, or you just know that that's imminent if it happens?
No, about the terms that you...
I believe that we have sent in some information, have we not, Peter?
Oh, we've been involved with the process originally when they set up the EIS, so basically on that submission we wanted them to be addressing issues of, say, impact on the airport, but all of the air, noise, water, dust, but also impact on our infrastructure, roads, and the proximity to the airport was a particular thing. So while we could really only just raise that those issues needed to be addressed by the proponent when they go through the
You've told them these are the issues that we can see.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's how they address that will come.
Because we see it coming and going. You know, you hear all about it, then
Yeah.
they're back on the radio, then it's off, then no one knows.
That's, we get the same
Right.
thing, so.
We have had, I know that I've certainly spoken about two other issues, and one is the preservation of the health and well-being of people within the area, and the other is to be very conscious about what level of impact it may make to our own town water supplies, to ensure that there isn't anything that interferes with the water quality within the region, in addition to the things that Peter's talked about.
But also the social impacts and whether they be positive
That's actually probably a bigger
or
impact at the moment, is the fact that nobody knows. And it's,
right.
we're not involved, but
Yeah.
we have people that we know there that are just, they're getting hung out.
Well, that's the hardest.
State government doesn't know themselves, I don't think.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Because I think they pulled it and they've actually, I think later on down the track, am I right, Mark, by saying they've actually got to redo the EIS?
I believe, and I'll stand corrected, that they've lost the Coordinator General's project of state significance. So certainly the unknown and inconsistency of approach is creating untold heartache for the people that live there. And it really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, that's all good. No, I just want to know if council were involved.
And added that they lost their claim against the Australian tax office of $9 million, so I think that'll probably slow their application down even further now.
And their methodology of transporting the coal, apparently they have drawn the line along the current rail trail, so
Between Crawford and Tingura, I believe.
Yeah, okay. All good. Right.
Okay, are there any other questions, folk? Chris, you've got another one. Come on, man.
I'm now that we're in this area, and I've just written down here the promotion of Maidenwell and its brand and its functions and all the rest of it. We know that there's a music festival happening next year and all the rest of it. And I think the guys that are involved have gone to the council, and the council's welcomed that and become partners and with the hotel and all the rest of it, which we think is fantastic. And we just want, personally, I just want to know that the council were approachable for development of the area.
Yeah.
In a nutshell,
Well,
yes.
The fact that there is a very strong community group here, who drives the activities within the region is a very strong point in itself. I mean, council would not and can't resource every little spot within the whole South Bennett region, but where community groups roll up their sleeves, get in and do things to improve their communities, they get the full support from council.
There you go.
And
I think
plus,
one of the things I think one of the things we really see, the most exciting things to me is that there are established industries that have been here for a long time that are expanding. That's a really good growth. I mean, we've got 2 service stations happen, and it's happened this last 12 months. We haven't seen a new service station open for 30 years. So that's real investment. On top of that, you've got big players like AGL, Bega Cheese coming to BC now. You've got 2 others, Swiggers, the boys have big ideas, big plans, big money. And I think it's not going to be too long. Once the Bunnings comes, and they're ready to, they've got the site up there at the moment, they've got the work through them and stuff, so that'll be groundwork will start in the next couple of weeks. I really believe that there are other developers, big developers, looking right now. Because I mean, when you've got 4 people like that coming into an area, that says this is a pretty damn good place for investment.
Now,
well, can I speak to that one first before we go there? With regards to that, I mean, you guys have an amazing place here. I mean, especially with Coomber Falls and the work we're doing there, and we've got on the books still to do down at the Falls area, and also with, let's face it, next door. What more do you want? And plus, you're on the doorstep to the Bunyas, so it's a really great spot to be. And as part of council and being on their books, to sort of, it's one of the places to go.
I was getting to the point of the Bunyas and the road to the Bunyas.
All right. That falls right into Chris. That falls right into the lap of Councillor Jones. And we have achieved the 8 p.m, but this is not to say you can't ask any more questions, but it will be over a cup of tea.
We've got a little can, so we'll start boiling.
Well, that's right. Start.
Just before you
you know
finish,
how to put the switch on.
I just want to wind back to the comment before about asking you in particular about guarantee for the road levy. Yes, I did, and yes, you did commit, but when we put this budget down this year, and we were asked to write our explanations and all the rest of what we thought about the budget, and I said, and I'm only speaking for myself here, I'm not speaking for any other council or any other senior management person up here, but when you're in a position like this and you see what you have got ahead of you and you know that you can't get to the end of the road without doing something different and making a call, and that was a call, and I changed my mind on that. I didn't like the road levy either, and I still don't, but I changed my mind, and no one changed or forced me to change my mind. And it's when you get into council and you see that you need to do something, and this is only my opinion, back in when they brought the road levy in, it should never have been brought in a road levy. It should have been an increase in your rates. Now the council that done it at the time, I think they made a mistake. I'm not, that's just my opinion. I've done a little bit of homework, and you go and compare similar sized councils across our state, and when they got amalgamation, they went up 14 to 16%. We went up somewhere between 8 and 10. Then when they got into it, they realised that their budget wasn't good enough to proceed and keep improving the roads, and they started to get hammered. Rather than put their hand up and say, sorry, but we need to make an extra, put the rates up. This is only my opinion, mind you, and shoot me down if you want, but I'll stand by this. I believe it should have been put in the rates way back then. It was brought in as a road levy, and the worst thing that was ever done was somebody might have stood up in some public meeting or said it was only going to be for 1 or 2 years, when they really probably knew that we'd never be able to get rid of it because we need that money. And when I saw the budget this year and I saw what was ahead of us and what we needed to do to change the way that we were fixing our roads to stop people having accidents or whatever they were doing, and the complaints were coming in, I believe that this is the right call. So this gentleman here wasn't on his own. We all supported it, every single one of us. So I hope no one just points the finger at the mayor and all that. We all voted yes, and that is my explanation to why I changed my mind. And I copped a lot of flack that, oh yeah, he promised this, he promised, yeah I did. But is anybody entitled in their lifetime to change their decision when they have new information come to them? I think they are. If they think they're making a decision for the better, I think they have the right if they think it's right. And that's just me. I'm sorry, but I'm done now. But with the road, sorry, I met with Mr. Mark Bailey the other day, and fingers crossed, who knows, still negotiating and all that sort of stuff. It's a long road. The last time I had a crack at it, 2004. We're back on the trail, trying to get it sealed and all that sort of stuff. Who knows?
Because it's a main road.
It's a state road.
It's a state, yeah, right. Councillor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to the road levy, not part of that decision with the road levy, and I was pushing for the road levy because I wanted that money to be insured to go on roads, and once it's a levy it has to go on roads, but when it becomes part of the general rate you can't guarantee it goes on roads, and that's what the concern was with merging it, but we've got to guarantee that it will be put back into roads.
There's a clear indicator, Lester, if I'm wrong, but if you start off with a $4 million thing and your rates now go up every year 2.5%, and you ask the council and say how much of that road or whatever, you've got a fair indication. There's a bottom line where we started, and there's an indication. Yes. And I'll tell you what, if our road budget drops down, I'll be saying where the hell's it going?
Yeah, but I'm just saying as you go forward, if you had a council that wasn't supportive of it, they could put it into something else, whereas with the road levy it has to be spent on roads.
They can if they get the numbers, but God help anyone that tries to take money off of that and whatever, because you know the feeling of the public out there, and you do not touch that road levy, and you make sure it's in there for what it's meant for. And that's our job as a council, to make sure and ensure that happens.
There's an absolute clear connection between the extra revenue and the road spend. And it's the road investment spend that I think you need to monitor, look at, because that's where the extra money went very clearly to that spend.
No, I'm happy to monitor it for you because I make sure I push for it.
So the road levy has gone by name, but it has not gone in terms of the volume. raises, and instead of it being a flat charge, it is now a charge that is based on valuation.
Yeah, but other councils have tried to freeze rates to help farmers that are struggling with the drought, whereas you guys have slugged that predominantly onto the rural sector.
No, I mean, I know that comment has been made time and time again. I won't ask you to tell me what your unimproved capital value is, but I have done quite a bit of looking, since all this has started, and the valuations that are large certainly are the ones who've got, and it goes across the board.
So it wasn't just rural, it was people in towns that had.
So our rates, the rates of our business, we've got a business with 5 partners in, the rates that we're paying are going to go up more than 3,500
Per year? Per year, is it? Yeah. Yeah, and what has been done for this year constitutes the budget. There have been complaints and comments made about the higher-based valuation of properties. Mr. CEO, when the budget for next year is formulated, we will can, no guarantees, but there will be other people who research again in terms of taking a look at if there are other ways of being able to still raise the same amount of money so that we can invest it into the roads and make the improvements that everybody has been, chiding us about for years. So, it's the condition of the roads that has driven us to do something that we needed to do to put more resources into the roads. So, the consequence is that somebody's rates, some people's rates have gone up higher than others, but it's all tied back to unimproved capital. Yes, Richard.
Does the council...
Oh, sorry.
Does the council for 5 or 10 year plan looking forward at any vision about the future of the Toronto Power Station and the associated coal mine? The questions related to the plant's extremely old. It's by today's standards not going to be replaced in its current location, mainly due to the coal quality. So, it would have a major impact, in the 5-10 year sense for the council to be aware of it.
Council is very much aware of it, and council is trying to get some hard and fast indicators and direction as to what's happening. Hence the reason why council is working as hard as it possibly can to get other business activity really going and rolling within the region, so that if in the event somewhere along the way that coal mine is not there, that we're backfilling as best as we possibly can with other businesses to sort of take up the slack, as it were. So we continue to talk with Minister Anthony Lynham. I've had discussions with the Stanwell operators, have talked to other politicians about the situation at Stanwell, the Toronto Power Station, and you can't get an absolute commitment out of anything in terms of what may or may not happen there. Other than that, it's not on the short-term radar to do anything out of Toronto at this point in time. Now look, why don't you stay and join us for a cup of tea, stay and have some